Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's fireside chat, What It Takes to Achieve Complete Passwordless, with Axiad and our guest, Forrester. My name is Sarah Goodwin, and I'll be your moderator today. I'll be joined by our guest, Sean Ryan, Senior Analyst at Forrester, and Nicolas Malbranche, Senior Product Manager at Axiad. So just to walk through today's agenda quickly, now that we've done our introductions, Sean will go through the challenges and opportunities of passwordless. Then we will dive into the fireside chat between Sean and Nico, talking about some of the pitfalls of passwordless. Nico will then highlight the Axiad solution to help you reach passwordless successfully and stay there. And then we'll wrap up with a short Q&A. We really do welcome your questions, so please submit them throughout our discussion today, and we'll do our best to address them all at the end of the presentation. So with that, I will hand over to Sean.
Great, thanks so much. I'm excited to be here and for this topic. This is one I'm pretty passionate about. My first report at Forrester was actually using zero trust to kill the password, and we're still trying to do that. There's a lot of reasons, both they have to do with legacy technology, with user inertia, with the use of passwords, but we're still trying to kill passwords today. So it's a challenge. It's an ongoing one, but seen a lot of progress in the past 12 months. So I'm really looking forward to talking through how we can start to move companies in the right direction and get to stronger authentication and to passwordless approaches eventually. So just want to kind of share a couple of background items here. Just a reminder that, this is the security reason that we really need to move towards passwordless. We've got authentication credentials as the top target for attacks, for breaches. And that makes sense because that's the gateway into all of the other types of sensitive data that attackers are trying to capture. So we've really set ourselves up for failure with passwords. We know they're all compromised out sitting on the dark web. People do things to undermine these, and it really opens up the organization to not only security breaches, but hassles for users as they try and navigate what they need to do in their day-to-day basis in their jobs while having to remember multiple passwords, do password resets, and really, just deal with the complexities and the headaches that come with passwords. Really, we're in a place where the pandemic has accelerated a move towards, at the very least, two-factor authentication being used while people are working remotely and they're outside of the firewall. But we're still in a place, and this has been consistent year after year, where password management comes up as really the highest percentage that companies are spending, or a percentage of companies who are spending on identity and access management technologies. They're spending on password management still. So it's really, they're trying to password policy their way out of the problem. This ultimately is a Band-Aid solution. It's not going to work. You've got, again, the fact that many of these credentials are stolen and sitting out there. They can be purchased for pretty small money. You don't need a sophisticated attacker to come in and break into your networks when the credentials are sitting out there. We've also got phishing attacks that continue to be an ongoing problem and are a way for credentials to be compromised. We've got insider attacks, kind of over the shoulder, or somebody inadvertently shares their passwords. There's a lot of social engineering that goes on. And there's also really just kind of the human nature of, we all have so many passwords to remember that we start reusing the same password across multiple sites. We also do things to undermine the more complex types of passwords that are enforced upon us. And we do pretty obvious pattern things when we have to change and rotate these passwords every quarter. So again, can't really password policy our way out of this problem. So where are we today? So really there's three stages that I like to define along our path to authentication maturity. The first stage is password centric. That doesn't mean you're only using passwords, but it means that really across your organization, for your employees, your contingent workers, your partners, your customers, it's really primarily passwords are the primary means, and in some cases the sole means of access. And you may be doing some form of two-factor authentication in some cases, maybe for just your privileged users, for example. And I think we're still at 50 to 60% of organizations are in this stage. And it's hard to get out of this stage when you've been a long-standing company, you've built systems around this, you've invested in password technologies, and you're really trying to evolve to a next stage. And you've got competing priorities, you've got really many different systems you have to consider, many different businesses. So it's not an easy thing to do. But we have had companies move more quickly into this layered authentication stage, the stage 2, because of the pandemic. It really fast-tracked a lot of investment and focus on this. And this is where you are getting into having really more multi-factor authentication in your organization. So you're starting to use things beyond just SMS-based two-factor authentication. You're using app-based authenticators. You're maybe using some biometrics, some other methods in addition to passwords. But you're still very much dependent on the password. It's still pretty core to your network topology. And, again, that's probably 40% of orgs there today. And then we're moving towards more enablement of passwordless authentication. So there's increasingly more standards. There's more solutions out there that enable this. And this is when you move the password into the back seat. And you are using a different authentication method as your primary means to get in. It's stronger. It's a better user experience if it's done right. And we're still far below 10% of orgs in this position today. So the good news is that as the organizations that we've polled, there is a vast majority who are either investing in multi-factor authentication and passwordless technologies today, often early stages. And so that's 71% doing that, with another 12% that are planning to adopt. So there's a majority that recognize this problem. They're moving in this direction, but again, it's a journey. It's going to take some time to get there. So really, what are the a few best practices or ways that you want to conceptually think about passwordless? I'd say that the main thing is we're probably not going to get away from passwords for a long time. That something factor really is probably still going to need to be in the mix, but it really should be moved to a backseat or a secondary type of authenticator method. So you go with either a something you have factor. This could be tokens like a YubiKey or Phyton. It could be your smartphone with a protected certificate on it. Or it could be biometrics, things like your facial recognition through a smartphone or another dedicated device, fingerprint, could be voice pattern recognition. So moving one of these as your primary source of authentication, if done right, it's an easier experience. You don't have to remember these passwords, change these all the time. And it's more secure because it's a much harder thing to crack and steal. And it can be secured and encrypted and protected by the organization. So beyond that, really making sure that you are protecting the endpoints, that there is full encryption if it's a certificate sitting on a smartphone or another device, and that those credentials are securely stored wherever they happen to be, and that while they're in motion, they can't be intercepted. Another thing is, you can use these passwordless authentication technologies in combination with an IDaaS platform for single sign-on as a way to gain access into multiple applications. So you front-end it that way. Again, that still has passwords kind of living in the background, but it is a good way to channel things through. And on the very front end, you're enforcing passwordless. And then, it's important to make sure you have really sound processes. You've thought through this on dealing with lost, stolen devices and resetting even biometrics. There's ways to do this, and it's just important to make sure that you have thought through that and that is communicated to your users, admins, help desk, etc. And then the last thing is just make sure you're monitoring for high risk access scenarios, and that way you can apply a risk-based model. So you start with passwordless, but then you might need to still step up, add another factor in if there's some behavior that's looking fishy, and you need to make sure you still verify that user as who they claim to be. And then last thing I want to leave you with here is if passwordless is done right, there's some really great benefits from this. First of all, you would reduce help desk costs related to password resets. We've done extensive studies on this at Forrester, and with large organizations, we've even had instances where organizations are spending upwards of $1 million per year on password resets. And you factor in the lost productivity and the frustration of users, that user friction that adds to both tangible and intangible costs. Next is improving the security. Really, it is nothing is completely a silver bullet, but it absolutely improves your security posture greatly over a password-centric approach, and much harder to steal. And there are better methods for protecting these types of credentials than there are for passwords. And then last thing I would say is this can enable faster, more agile approaches. It can enable easier user login. We're getting to the point where we've just got more and more applications. We've got users changing access needs and roles. And by having these authenticators in the mix as opposed to passwords, it's really reducing that risk level. And if it's linked in with other IAM solutions with your existing processes, it gives you some good agility there. And you can be tying in with PKI certificate services and orchestrating that so that you've got agility for both your human users and your non-human users, and you're able to rotate those certificates and deal with these business changes in a much more seamless way.
To watch the full video, click the link below to our Bright Talk channel. For more Axiad content, click subscribe.